Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. New York, in the heart of the financial district. The afternoon sun streams through the large windows of the Manhattan Heights Bank branch, illuminating the lobby with an almost surreal glow. The atmosphere is hushed yet charged with tension. Customers wait in line, check their phones, whisper to each other, impatient. Among them is Naomi Johnson, a black woman in her 30s, elegant and serene. Her simple but perfectly tailored clothes reveal a confident and disciplined personality. In her hands, a thick folder containing all the documents necessary to finalize a crucial loan for her business. At the counter, Karen Whitmore, a well-dressed but haughty blonde cashier, observes the line with a mixture of boredom and superiority. Her gaze fixes on Naomi as soon as she approaches. A sarcastic smile plays on her lips. Karen takes a silent pleasure in humiliating those she deems inferior. Today, it will be Naomi. "Madam, are you sure you want to do this here?" Karen asks, her voice soft but icy, with a hint of contempt in her tone. Naomi, calm, replied with quiet dignity. "Yes, I made an appointment for my loan application." Karen snickered, loud enough for all the customers to hear. "Some people shouldn't even be here, some." The air suddenly becomes heavy. Murmurs spread through the room. The customers exchange surprised glances, some frustrated by Karen's gratuitous cruelty. Naomi feels the tension rising, but she lets nothing show. She breathes deeply, aware that every movement, every word counts. Karen, ever arrogant, pretends to be confused. "I mean, I've never seen anyone like you handle cases like this." Naomi lightly clutched her file, her gaze fixed calmly and resolutely on Karen. She knew that the next step would determine not only the future of her case, but also how this unjust arrogance would be dealt with. Silence falls over the agency. Every client holds their breath. Naomi, with calculated slowness, looks up at Karen and utters the words that will transform the atmosphere of the agency. "Do you know who I am?" Everyone froze. Even Karen, used to being in control, felt a shiver run down her spine. She laughed nervously, trying to hide her discomfort. "No, who are you?" Naomi smiled slightly, a glimmer of defiance in her eyes. "I'm Naomi Johnson. The client whose case represents millions for your agency, and the one who could decide your future here if you continue to treat your clients this way." The lobby falls silent, frozen in place. The customers, the employees, and even Karen understand that the dynamic has shifted. Naomi is not just a customer, she is a powerful, respected, and influential woman. The tension is palpable, and everyone knows that the next few moments will mark a turning point. The silence in the agency is almost palpable after Naomi's question, "Do you know who I am?" Karen, the arrogant cashier, remained frozen, unable to hide her discomfort. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her badge. The line of customers held its breath, fascinated by this unusual confrontation. Some exchanged furtive glances, surprised to see a customer stand up to such a confident and provocative employee. Karen balbuted. I didn't know." But Naomi leaves no room for hesitation. Her voice is clear, firm, and each word seems to carry a ton of weight. "I'm Naomi Johnson. The client whose loan file represents over $5 million for your agency this year. And I'm the one who could decide to close your branch if you continue to treat your clients with arrogance and contempt." A murmur ripples through the lobby. The customers freeze, some gazing at Naomi with admiration, others with astonishment. Karen, suddenly aware of the gravity of her actions, feels a chill run down her neck. The woman she thought she was humiliating is in fact an influential figure whose decision could drastically alter her professional life. Naomi continued, unperturbed. "Your words and attitude will be reported to your management. And if necessary, they will be shared with the press. What you just did is not only disrespectful, it's unacceptable." Karen tries to murmur an apology, but no sound comes out clearly. Her lips tremble, and her eyes betray a mixture of fear and embarrassment. The crowd of customers, until then silent, begins to applaud softly, some even rising from their seats to show their support. At that precise moment, Naomi pulls out her phone, captures every detail of the incident, and sends a quick message to her assistant, confirmation that the entire matter will be immediately reported to management. The look she gives Karen is both calm and ruthless, the look of a woman who knows exactly what she's doing and who is now in control of the situation. Karen remains paralyzed behind her counter, unable to respond, unable to regain control. The arrogant cashier who thought she could humiliate a customer without consequence discovers, for the first time, that power and influence are not measured by appearances, but by determination and knowledge of one's own power. And Naomi, serene, closes her file as if to seal Karen's fate, leaving the entire hall in a mixture of respect, admiration, and astonishment. The agency is no longer the same. The air in the agency is thick. Every client, every employee, senses that something extraordinary is happening. Karen, usually so self-assured, is now frozen behind her counter, unable to speak or move. Naomi, on the other hand, remains motionless, each gesture measured, each word charged with power and calm. "I think it's important that you understand," Naomi began, her voice ringing with authority, "that respect isn't begged for, it's earned. What you just did isn't just impolite, it's unacceptable." Karen opens her mouth, tries to whisper an apology, but nothing comes out. The customers begin to whisper, some nodding in approval, others discreetly taking out their phones to film the scene. Naomi continues, relentless. "Every word you have spoken will be reported to your management, documented, and archived. Your actions could influence your future at this agency, and believe me, they will." A palpable tension settles in, as if time has stopped. Naomi takes a few steps towards the counter, her gait slow but deliberate. Each movement shows that she is in complete control. "Karen Whitmore," she said, pronouncing the cashier's name with icy precision, "I advise you to think about your actions. Your words have weight, and today you will suffer the consequences." At that moment, a small group of customers began to applaud, timidly at first, then louder and louder. The employees around watched, some with admiration, others with a sense of relief. Finally, someone was putting arrogance and contempt in their place. Karen, unable to bear the attention, lowers her head, her cheeks flushed with shame. Naomi, without another word, picks up her file, closes it slowly, and turns toward the exit. Each step she takes echoes in the hall, and everyone understands that the power has shifted. Before leaving, Naomi adds, without raising her voice but with enormous impact, "Respect is universal. Never forget that." She leaves the agency, leaving behind a completely paralyzed Karen and a crowd of speechless witnesses. News of the incident spreads quickly, as everyone at the agency knows they have just witnessed an unforgettable lesson in humility and respect. The next morning, the Manhattan Heights branch was still reeling. The story of Naomi Johnson and her confrontation with Karen Whitmore had been circulating among the employees, each silently commenting on what they had witnessed the previous day. All eyes were still on the counter where Karen, humiliated, was trying to regain some semblance of composure. But something had changed, the arrogance that had defined her was gone, replaced by a palpable nervousness and a sense of inferiority she had never known before. Meanwhile, Naomi, sitting in her private office, sends an email to the agency's management. Every word is precise, measured, and documents the scene in minute detail, Karen's condescension, the crowd's reaction, and the impact on the agency's image. She isn't just seeking redress for herself, she wants the agency to understand that respect and dignity are non-negotiable. A few hours later, management called an emergency meeting. All the employees were gathered, and Karen sat in the front row, unable to look away. The manager spoke, visibly nervous. "Yesterday, a serious incident occurred at our agency," he began, his voice trembling, "and we received detailed reports from the client, Naomi Johnson. Her observations are accurate, and we are taking the situation very seriously." He pauses, scrutinizing Karen's face. All eyes are fixed on her. "Karen Whitmore, your behavior is unacceptable. Mandatory training on customer service and respect for diversity will begin immediately. Your actions yesterday will not be forgotten. Karen, her hands clasped tightly, lowers her head. She understands that the woman she thought she was humiliating has not only gained the upper hand but has also triggered a structural change throughout the agency. Naomi, with a few gestures and words, has transformed arrogance and contempt into a tangible and lasting lesson. The employees whispered amongst themselves, some expressing their admiration for Naomi, others reflecting on their own behavior. The words of a single person, calm and determined, had a monumental impact. They transformed an entire workplace, commanded respect, and reminded everyone that every action has a consequence. And in her office, Naomi smiles slightly. She knows that she has accomplished more than a simple confrontation. She has sown a seed of change, which, in time, will influence all those who cross the threshold of the agency. A few days after the confrontation, the Manhattan Heights branch was a changed man. Regular clients immediately noticed the difference. The atmosphere was more respectful, more attentive. Even newcomers, unaware of Naomi's story, felt the rigor and seriousness imposed by management. The incident had left an indelible mark. Naomi, for her part, continues to manage her business with the same calm and efficiency that had distinguished her within the agency. But she is beginning to feel the indirect impact of her actions. Several clients approach her with admiration, some recognizing her and expressing their support. "I've heard about you, Ms. Johnson," said an elegant businessman, entering the agency. "Your composure and self-assurance are exemplary." "Thank you," Naomi replied with a measured smile. "But it's primarily a matter of mutual respect." Meanwhile, Karen Whitmore tries to regain her footing, but every interaction reminds her of the humiliation she suffered. Even clients unaware of her recent past now perceive her hesitation and lack of confidence. She becomes a silent mirror to Naomi's authority and dignity. Within the agency, some employees begin to share personal stories, expressing their admiration for Naomi and how she has changed their perception of power and respect. The domino effect is underway. A single confrontation, conducted with intelligence and dignity, has had repercussions throughout the entire community, redefining the balance of power and how everyone behaves within the agency. News of the incident spread quickly throughout the financial district. Naomi became a symbol of courage and resolve, not only for her clients but for everyone who witnessed the scene. Her name was spoken with respect and admiration in cafes, offices, and even other bank branches. And as she resumes her routine, Naomi knows the true impact of her actions isn't over yet. Every decision she makes now, every move she takes, is being watched. But this time, she's in complete control. Karen's arrogance and the injustice she suffered are now behind her, replaced by a silent and irresistible power. A few weeks later, the Naomi Johnson vs. Karen Whitmore arrogance case became the talk of the town in Manhattan Heights. Local newspapers picked up the story, social media seized upon the event, and a video taken by a customer went viral. Naomi, ever calm, observed this attention without seeking personal glory. Her goal was clear: to transform a humiliating experience into a universal lesson in respect and dignity. One morning, she decided to go to the agency, not to handle a new case, but to give a public testimony before all the employees and clients present. A crowd had gathered in the lobby, curious and attentive. Naomi stepped forward, each step measured, her posture perfect and her gaze confident. She knew that every word would resonate in their memories. "Yesterday," she began, her voice clear and calm, "we witnessed something far deeper than the mere arrogance of an employee. We saw how prejudice and disrespect can affect the lives of others." The employees, silent, listen attentively. Karen, sitting at the counter, can't look away. Naomi continues. "What we do here is not limited to financial transactions. Every interaction, every smile, every word counts. Respect is not optional. It is the foundation of all human and professional relationships." The crowd is captivated. The customers nod their heads, some with emotion, others with a sense of personal introspection. Naomi then speaks directly to Karen. "Karen Whitmore, I'm not here to humiliate you. I'm here to remind you that our actions have consequences. You have the opportunity to change, to improve, and to become an example for your colleagues. Karen, her face flushed and her eyes downcast, murmured, I understand. Naomi concluded, her voice echoing throughout the hall. Power does not lie in arrogance. True power lies in dignity, respect, and the ability to do what is right. Let each of us remember this. A standing ovation erupts in the agency. Clients applaud, some with emotion, others with silent admiration. Karen, though embarrassed, begins to grasp the profound lesson she has learned. Naomi has transformed a tense moment into a lasting lesson, an example of courage and self-control. And in the weeks that followed, the Manhattan Heights agency became a symbol of respect and professionalism, inspired by a single woman who dared to confront arrogance and prejudice with calm, intelligence and power. A few months after the incident, the Manhattan Heights branch is no longer the same. The changes implemented following the confrontation with Naomi Johnson are visible in every corner of the lobby. Employees now treat each client with care, patience, and respect. Forced smiles have been replaced by genuine courtesy, and the overall atmosphere exudes dignity and professionalism. Karen Whitmore, though still present behind her counter, has changed. The arrogance that once defined her has given way to a burgeoning humility. Every interaction with customers is now guided by an awareness of the consequences of her past actions. She watches Naomi work, silently, and begins to understand that true power lies not in contempt, but in competence, respect, and self-control. But Naomi didn't just transform the agency. Her actions resonated far beyond. Clients, witnessing her calm and firmness, began sharing their experiences. Social media picked up the story, and local media interviewed Naomi, highlighting her as an example of leadership, courage, and dignity. In her office, Naomi receives a call from another bank branch, this time outside Manhattan Heights. We've heard about what you've done. Your approach is impressive. We'd like you to provide training on respect and customer management to our teams. Naomi smiled slightly, aware that her actions now extended beyond the walls of her agency. Every step she took, every word she spoke, contributed to creating lasting change. Outside the agency, the local community is also beginning to recognize the importance of respect and dignity in everyday interactions. People speak of Naomi not only as an influential client, but as a voice that has redefined standards of behavior and responsibility in a public space. That day, as she left the agency to attend an important business meeting, Naomi felt a mixture of satisfaction and pride. She knew her actions had created a real and lasting impact. Arrogance had been confronted, humiliation transformed into a lesson, and dignity restored. And in the calm imposed by her self-control, Naomi understood that true power lies in inspiring respect, rather than in imposing fear or a sense of superiority. A few weeks after the agency's transformation, Naomi decides to remain vigilant. Even though Karen Whitmore's humiliation marked a turning point, she knows that true, lasting change requires transparency and accountability. She begins discreetly observing the internal workings, service practices, and how employees interact with each other and with clients. One morning, Naomi notices disturbing behavior from another employee, less arrogant than Karen but just as careless. Several clients have been misled in their transactions, and some files appear incomplete. Naomi decides to take action, not to humiliate, but to correct and teach. She calls a meeting with the entire agency team. The employees expect a standard review of procedures, but Naomi begins by calmly outlining specific facts. These incidents show that despite our efforts, certain practices can still damage our clients' trust. Arrogance is not always blatant, sometimes it is subtle, but its consequences are just as serious. Silence falls. The employees understand they are being watched and that discipline has become a priority. Naomi continues, her voice firm but inspiring. I'm not here to assign blame. I'm here so we can build a culture of respect and accountability. Every mistake or oversight will be corrected, and together we will learn to better serve our customers. Then, Naomi unveils an initiative she has implemented, an internal mentoring and ongoing training program for all employees. The idea is to transform every past mistake into a concrete learning experience, while reinforcing the culture of respect established since the confrontation with Karen. Karen, who is listening attentively, understands that she still has much to learn. But for the first time, she feels genuine inspiration rather than paralyzing fear. Naomi isn't just looking to punish or humiliate, she transforms weaknesses and arrogance into opportunities for growth for the entire team. At the end of the meeting, the employees leave the room with a feeling of renewal. Naomi, observing the scene, feels a deep satisfaction. She has not only corrected the blatant arrogance, but she has created a system capable of preventing injustices and strengthening respect in the agency for years to come. And in this calm, Naomi knows that her influence is no longer limited to herself or to a simple incident. She has become a force for transformation, capable of changing the culture of an entire institution. Despite the gradual changes taking place at the Manhattan Heights agency, some resistance remains. One employee, Thomas Reed, a young cashier known for his subtle arrogance and veiled contempt, begins to challenge the new unspoken rules established by Naomi. He is still unaware of the impact of his behavior, believing his actions will go unnoticed. One morning, Naomi discreetly observes Thomas treating a customer condescendingly, making a sarcastic comment about the slowness of the process. The other customers, who witnessed this, seem hesitant and uncomfortable. Naomi chooses not to intervene immediately, preferring a strategic plan to a direct confrontation. During the agency's weekly meeting, she addressed the subject in a subtle but firm manner. "Yesterday, we observed a situation where a customer felt misunderstood and undervalued. Even a subtle gesture or word can create a negative impact. Thomas, I believe you can help us understand how to avoid this in the future." The young employee stiffened, surprised to be publicly named. But Naomi didn't raise her voice. Her composure was her most powerful weapon. She continued, "Our goal here is not personal criticism, but building a strong culture. Every action counts. Every word counts. And each of us is responsible for maintaining respect and dignity in every interaction." Thomas senses Naomi's calm and implacable authority. Her words are not an attack, but a subtle highlighting of his mistakes. The tension in the room is palpable. The other employees watch, some with relief, others with curiosity. Later that day, Naomi asks Thomas to work directly with her on an important client project, under her supervision. Far from being a humiliating punishment, it's a transformative opportunity. Under Naomi's watchful eye, Thomas gradually grasps the importance of responsibility and respect. Every decision he makes is now observed and guided, and he begins to feel a deep respect for Naomi's discipline and authority. That day, Naomi demonstrated to everyone that true power lies not in direct confrontation or humiliation, but in the ability to transform resistance into learning and growth. Even those who seemed the most reluctant began to understand that Naomi was much more than an influential customer. She was a model of leadership and dignity. A few weeks after facing Thomas Reed's resistance, Naomi decides it's time to close this chapter and firmly establish a culture of respect at the Manhattan Heights agency. She organizes an extraordinary gathering, inviting all employees, as well as some regular clients who had witnessed the previous events. The lobby is filled with anticipation. Everyone senses that something significant is about to happen. Naomi takes her place in the center, her gaze sweeping the room calmly and confidently. The murmurs gradually die down as her clear, composed voice resonates. "We have all witnessed situations where arrogance, disrespect, and contempt have caused harm. But we have also seen that courage, dignity, and self-control can transform these moments into lasting lessons." She slowly approaches the counter, where Karen and Thomas are sitting. The two employees, though nervous, listen attentively. Naomi continues. "Karen, Thomas, you have each seen, in your own way, what it means to be confronted with the truth about your actions. But this truth is not a punishment. It is an opportunity to grow, to show that we can all improve." The customers, fascinated, hold their breath. Naomi takes a deep breath before delivering the moment that will go down in history. "From today onward, every word you speak, every action you take in this agency, will carry the weight of our shared commitment to respect, dignity, and integrity. You are all responsible, and you all have the ability to make a difference. A solemn silence falls, followed by spontaneous applause. Naomi smiles slightly, but the message is clear: she isn't seeking glory, she embodies the quiet power of justice and respect. Karen, visibly moved, lowers her eyes and murmurs a sincere "thank you," while Thomas nods, aware that his behavior must change permanently. The clients left the agency that day with a profound sense of respect for Naomi and the transformation she had initiated. The employees, for their part, knew they had just witnessed a lesson that would remain etched in their memories. True power lies not in humiliation or arrogance, but in the ability to guide, inspire, and correct with dignity. As Naomi stepped back from the center of the hall, she felt a quiet satisfaction. She had transformed adversity into a lesson, arrogance into respect, and she knew that the effects of this lesson would be felt in the agency for many years to come. Several months have passed since the historic confrontation between Naomi Johnson and Karen Whitmore. The Manhattan Heights agency is now recognized throughout the city as a model of respect, professionalism, and dignity. Every employee, inspired by Naomi's teachings, acts with awareness and responsibility, and clients immediately feel the difference. Karen, once arrogant and disdainful, has completely changed. She actively participates in internal training and even helps mentor new employees. Thomas Reed, who initially resisted authority, has become one of the biggest advocates for the culture Naomi has established. Together, they embody the change Naomi initiated, and her influence continues to spread beyond the agency. But Naomi doesn't stop there. Thanks to her reputation and the impact of her actions, she is invited to give talks and advise other agencies and companies on how to create an environment where respect and dignity are paramount. Her story becomes a symbol for the local community and an example of leadership based on justice and quiet firmness. One day, as she walked through the lobby of her agency, Naomi paused for a moment. She observed the smile of a satisfied client, the harmonious interactions between the employees, and the calm that reigned in the agency. She knew that all of this was the result of her decisions, her self-control, and her courage in the face of arrogance and injustice. Before leaving the agency, Naomi turns to Karen and Thomas. Always remember this: dignity and respect are not demanded, they are shown. And when you apply them consistently, they transform not only others, but also yourself. The two employees silently nodded, deeply moved. Naomi stepped out of the building, the New York sun illuminating her face. Each step she took resonated like a declaration of quiet strength, courage, and integrity. And throughout Manhattan Heights, her name is now synonymous with respect, quiet power, and lasting change. Naomi Johnson didn't just confront arrogance and injustice, she redefined what it means to be influential, fair, and unwavering. The agency, its employees, and the entire community now bear the marks of her wisdom and leadership. Calm and dignity have prevailed, and everyone knows that no one will ever underestimate Naomi Johnson again.